There's a conversation that happens inside medical and law school admissions offices that most applicants never hear. It happens in committee rooms and in the margins of application files. It's the little moment a dean closes a folder and decides, I spent over 15 years in that room. This is GradMissions Office Hours. I'm Autumn Rains-Lockett, and every week my team and I bring that conversation out into the open because the process was never meant to be a mystery, and your future is too important for guesswork. Let's get to work. Okay, we heard you all loud and clear. Welcome back to GradMissions Office Hours. We are excited to dig into part 2 of our Secondaries episode. We were looking back and realized that we promised you guys a part 2 and we haven't done it yet. And based on the response to part 1, this is what you want, which makes sense. If you're applying to med school, you are staring down the barrel of a lot of secondaries coming your way. This is a place where a lot of med school applicants stall out. I was always so surprised when I worked for an MD program. We have a little filter we can run on the school side of AMCAS where we can see like untransmitted apps and then untransmitted, basically like we know about you, but you haven't hit submit yet. And the gap between people who we have sent secondaries to and who have responded to it, I mean, it would be hundreds of applicants. Now, I'm sure some of them, like they didn't get their MCAT where they needed it to be, or they decided to take a gap year. But I think a lot of people get their primary in and they're like, phew, that was hard. And we're like, you ain't saying nothing yet, it's coming. And so I think that's part of the reason behind this. There's also just so much bad information out there about secondaries and how to approach them. And so I'm excited. I'm proud of the work that we do around secondaries. It's very thoughtful. It's very individualized. When we're working with a client, this is where we spend 8 to 10 weeks of writers' workshops with the two of us looking at your secondary prompts, working through those. And then we have our team of meditors working in the background. So I think if you looked at the pie graph of the way that we work with med clients, secondaries take up a lot of that work. And so I'm excited to share some of our behind the scenes secrets. And if any of this sounds intimidating to you, if you're thinking about med school in the next year, 2, 3, the best advice I can give you is to start pre-writing your secondaries now. And so if you work with us, we do that verbally on calls and we kind of help you build those ideas out. But if you're going it alone or if you're in the current cycle, I hope you find a lot of hope and encouragement from this episode.
Yeah, the secondary writing process is overwhelming, honestly, no matter how you cut it. Whether you procrastinate and pre-write nothing, it's overwhelming. If you pre-write, it's overwhelming. It's just there's so much story to tell, which is a great problem to have, right?
Choose your hard. You can do it in the
Yes.
moment or you can do it before.
Yes, I'm really proud of our clients because a lot of them are finished, with their primary, submitted, done, dusted, and working hard in our essay workbook on pre-writing some of their secondaries already while we wait for them to receive secondaries. We also have students who apply DO and essentially are already writing and submitting what I would consider to be a secondary essay because now a lot of DO programs send out secondaries with the primary,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Some of them are baked right into that primary.
Yes. So really those students had to have at least some of the main secondaries kind of ready to go when they submitted their primary for DO. So we are cooking already, which is kind of what inspired this episode because yes, we are cooking, but yes, I'm already seeing some like common mistakes that, we're addressing early on, which is great, but we thought that might be a helpful topic for us to share in this venue. So the first mistake that I am already seeing, even with our clients who I love dearly, is not pre-writing at all. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is, I just hustled on this primary. I want to take a break. Mm-hmm. Totally agree, totally deserved. How long that break is? I mean, what you've got 4 weeks more or less for verification, right? For AMCAS.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So we can't take a 4-week break.
Nope.
I think maybe you could take a 1-week break and then get back to it. What do you think, Autumn? Is that?
I think 1 week is fine. I think future you will be thankful if you just find the lowest hanging fruit and get started there, right? Like find the secondaries, well, and we'll get into this, that you think are the easiest to pre-write and do that. I think that's what I've been encouraging our friends when I'm talking to them weekly in our check-in calls. I also think that the time to wait and relax is after your secondaries are submitted. Then you're going to have months where you're like, boy, I wish I had something to do because there is nothing between me and this interview invite, and you're just waiting, doing nothing. That person is going to be so thankful that you pre-wrote thoughtful secondaries and submitted the best work possible so that you know that you've left every single thing that you could out.
Yes. I think secondaries can feel like an avalanche,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't establish in the calm what
Mm,
narratives you want to share, I think it's really easy to just miss important things that you would want to share with an admissions committee. When you're just feeling the panic, I think sometimes you just go with the first thing that comes to your mind, which sometimes is great,
mhm.
but also sometimes you're underselling yourself.
That's right.
You share something with our clients that I think is really important about secondaries being interview prep.
Oh, I was so hoping you would give me a chance to talk about that because it just sort of organically, 17 years in this industry and I'm still having aha moments. And that is, you know, that is the benefit of you working with us is this is such an iterative process. Like admissions is constantly changing. The way that we interface with admissions is constantly changing. And this is one of those moments that I had. Your secondary work is you practicing for your interviews in a written version because if you want to stay in the driver's seat, right? You've worked so thoughtfully through your primary. You've presented your best self. They know your why medicine. They've seen the receipts in your activities and experiences. They've seen the cosign from your letter writers that yes, you're that amazing. They've seen your transcripts that show all of those things. You've presented such a beautiful story. There are things that your schools don't know about you yet, though, because of that stinking character count, right? It's so short. It's such an abbreviated space to tell your story. So, secondaries are your chance to expand on those things that you haven't quite covered yet. And if you wait for each school to send you their individual secondary, you are letting the schools drive the story that you tell them. And you're going to be, I just picture like Chuck E. Cheese whack a mole game, right? Like that is what writing secondaries as they come feels like. But when you get really good at knowing the well of your experiences and stories that you want to tell, and then shaping them to the lens of the question that's asked, that's how you do secondaries well. And that's also how you interview well.
100%. 100%. I could not have said that any better. And I think that should also kind of help motivate you to do this pre-writing secondary process.
Mm,
Because even if you pre-write something and you don't end up using it in a secondary, you will likely still need to draw on that narrative or story in an interview.
that's right.
Or even if they don't specifically ask about it and you know you haven't shared it somewhere else, find a way in. I mean,
Yes. Yes. I mean,
dig it in.
one of the most common interview closings is there anything we haven't asked you about that you'd like to share with us? Great. You've got 16 examples of that in these secondaries. Surely one of them you haven't gotten to in that 30-minute interview. I can't tell you
Yes.
how many times, we'll talk about interviews another time, but how many times that question gets asked and they're like, nope, because you want to get out of there, right? Like you're done. You were so ready for the interview to be over. And when I sit in the postmortems of interviews where the people who interviewed you are having to basically advocate for you, yes, or advocate for you, no, they talk about how you didn't really use the interview as well as you could have. And it's a knock against you. So this is great practice for that question too.
I'm going to have something to say about that type of question for secondaries as well. That I'll save
Okay.
that, but I do have something to say about that. Okay, mistake number two that I'm seeing often, and this is a perfectly reasonable mistake to be making. It's easy for me to see because I have looked at so many prompts.
Mhm.
I have looked at so many prompts for so many hours. So it's easy for me to see where the mistake is. But what I'm seeing students do is misattribute what the prompt is actually asking,
Ooh, say more.
right? So getting to kind of the under, like what it says on the surface versus what it's saying kind of underneath. So the common ones that I'm seeing if I'm comparing to what's misattributed, a hardship essay versus an overcoming failure essay.
Hmm. It's a
Those
very
are,
nuanced question.
it is, and those are two different things. I think a hardship essay talks about like obstacles and adversity. And to me, that also means we're trying to identify a hardship external to you,
Yes.
something that happened to you through no fault of your own, versus an overcoming failure essay is maybe more about like a setback or something that you had some hand in,
A
right?
logical consequence for a youthful indiscretion.
Yes, yes, exactly. So kind of digging out. Now, not everyone maybe feels like they have an external hardship. I might challenge you on that. I bet we could dig one out. Um, but I understand that sometimes there is some overlap, and sometimes if you feel like you don't have a story to tell for that, maybe you have to pivot a little bit. I think that's fine and we can make that work. But I think identifying that those are two different asks is important.
Mhm.
The other one that I see misattributed often is actually like a values essay versus a unique perspective essay.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that one.
Yeah, like you wouldn't necessarily think that, but I think a values essay is, often like a tell me about a time. Tell me about a time that you displayed this value that we also value. But I think a prompt that sometimes students will read and interpret as a values essay is what qualities can you bring to our school?
Mm,
And they think that the school wants to hear what do you value and how will you show us that here? But really, it's like about your own perspective
mhm.
and your personal worldview and what
Yes.
brought you to that point. Does that make sense?
That's so nuanced. Yes. What variation on that theme is when they ask about your unique background, lived experience, thing like, perspective versus when you've worked with people from a different perspective.
Yes.
Two very different questions that people conflate a lot, and you don't get the best version of that answer. And it can signal that you're not paying attention,
Such a good point.
not just in the question, but like in the world.
Yes. 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 No, that's such a good point. I also see it in DO prompts. So
Okay.
a DO school will commonly ask why DO. And that's really a values question.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
need to go look up the osteopathic values and write it as a values essay. Now, if they don't also ask in another question about like your experience with DO, a time you shadowed as a patient, whatever, share it there. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not saying you should not share it there, but the primary question is a values question. Why do your values align with the values of osteopathic medicine?
Yep.
Okay, what else? This one, oh, I can empathize with this one. In this pre-writing work and some of the DO work, forcing narratives to fit a prompt to minimize your writing. I get it.
Yes.
So tempting.
Yes. Well, and people accuse us sometimes, like, well, aren't you just having us like write one unique essay and then like match it? No, 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 no. Like ours is very intentional. Again, 17 years in the industry, that's the experience. These are the essay themes you need to write. What you're trying to do is take your economics essay and pass it off in your forensics class.
Correct. Or the example that I was thinking of is sometimes trying to make like a team failure to answer like a time you made a mistake,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
And those are both valuable stories,
Yep.
but they're answering two different things. If the question is asking you to identify a time that you made a mistake, it needs to be a mistake that you made and had consequences for.
Mhm.
If the question is asking about working on a team and the team experienced failure, that's a great team story. Like,
Exactly.
let's write that, but it's not answering the same thing.
That's
If
right.
you submit the team failure for the personal failure, you're degrading your response in there.
Mhm. Mhm. I was talking with a client this week, and maybe it was late last week, doesn't matter. And we were reflecting on one of these secondary prompts that she was pre-writing. And she was telling a story about a time that it was like one of her very first times as a volunteer EMT. She's in the back of the ambulance, and the person was very anxious about, had an injury, was on the way to the hospital, was just really anxious. And the ambulance kind of went around a curve and they slid around a little bit. And she made a joke to the patient in the back of the ambulance, like, listen, I promise this chariot's going to get you there quickly. Like, I'll have a talk with my driver. Just like being silly, like just trying to kind of take the emotional intensity out of the moment. And then after they had safely delivered the patient to the bay and were on their drive back to the station, the her like lead EMT person was like, "Do not ever let me hear you talking badly about a member of our team again." And she was like, "Yikes, sorry. That's not all how I meant it. Like I was just trying to," and they're like, "We know what you were trying to do. Never again. Like we have to present a unified, like the patient in the back of the ambulance needs to know that we are competent and that we are in charge." And like to me, like as someone who often uses humor to diffuse emotional intensity, I was like, "Ew, yikes." Like I could definitely see me doing that same sticky thing. But I thought it was just a real moment for her that she wrote about that. She's definitely going to be asked something about that in an interview, and that she has practiced writing it and telling that story and owning that mistake. And then she talked about how that has impacted her in the future, that she always thinks about how what she's saying reflects on the team around her. Beautiful example of this.
That is also a really important quality to showcase to a medical school is that you can own your mistakes.
Yes.
An
Yes.
operating room is built on such structure and roles, and everyone has their assigned role, and no one steps outside of their assigned role. I always think of this experience a student had. Oh, like I hate thinking about it because it's so cringe. Like it makes me want to turn inside out. But she like snatched an instrument. I think she was trying to just prove that she knew what was happening. Like the surgeon asked for an instrument and she took the instrument off of the tray, which is 100% the scrub tech's job. And her fatal mistake is that she could not acknowledge that that was a mistake.
Oh.
Yeah, she defended herself right into the ground. She actually ended up transferring medical schools. I think that's how bad it got for her.
Wow.
So, a little
So,
scandal there.
what I hear you saying, Logan, is that the ability to own a mistake is not just critical for patient care. Like, doctors who can own their mistakes are a malpractice waiting to happen. They just are. Like, you are still a human. You are not a robot. You are going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. And you practicing owning those mistakes and being responsible signals to a medical school that you're ready for that kind of intensity.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is not a situation where you're, trying to say that your flaw is that you work too hard. Like
No,
that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking
no.
for a mistake that you recognized and you owned it. And this is what happened and this is what I know
Yeah.
now.
It should hurt a little bit. Like, we talk about writing from scabs and scars. This should be a bruise.
Yes, for sure. Okay, on the opposite side of trying to force narratives, writing all of your tiny little custom narratives for the different prompts. You will burn yourself out so fast trying to write custom narratives for every single prompt that you receive.
You and I are thinking about the same client. I love her.
Yes.
She's doing great work. She's working way harder than she needs to.
And it's not sustainable. And don't make this more painful than it has to be.
That's right.
That's not to say that you're not tweaking the prompt. You're not tweaking your response to the prompt to answer the prompt
Sure.
completely, right? But
That's
like
the job.
yes, but you don't need to rewrite an entire narrative or come up with a new narrative because you've interpreted the prompt to be asking something different. Let's use the same narrative and end it differently.
That's right. That's right. I think about this as almost like stagecraft, right? You've got one spotlight, and this is a different like lens color that you're putting over it. You're changing the whole mood on the stage because of the way that you're flavoring it. And so I know it's variations on a theme. You have the stories that you want your med schools to know about you. You get to choose how to spin them so that they fit that, but you have to spin carefully.
Yes. Yes. So that actually kind of segues into my last one, which we referenced earlier, which is the is there anything else you'd like us to know question.
Mhm.
I was going through one of our clients, you know, workbooks or prompt drafting or whatever, and twice I got to the end and that prompt was listed with no response, only to realize that that client's plan was to not respond to that prompt, which is a terrible idea. If they are allowing you to use space, use it.
Yep. It's not nothing at GradMissions is optional.
Nothing at GradMissions
Mm-mm.
is optional. But this is another thing that we can pre-write as well. So,
That's right.
I'm
Why
not,
wouldn't you pre-write that?
yes, I'm not saying you need to write that new every time. I do think there's some strategy in it, right? So
Hmm.
if I saw that question, I would look at the body of the other prompts and see what I didn't get to share that I knew I wanted to share. For example, if you have some type of regional tie to that particular school and you haven't gotten to say that anywhere else, let's use that place to talk about your regional tie. That would be a very important thing to share with the school, that there is a reason you want to go there.
Hmm.
The same could be said. Some schools actually don't ask a matchmaker question,
Hmm.
right? Like some schools don't ask, why do you want to go to this school? That's surprising to me that some schools don't ask that, but they don't. So that would be the perfect place to use your
Perfect place.
matchmaker essay that you have pre-written that you did not get to share. Of course, it'll be a condensed version. You probably don't have 1,500 characters to share your full matchmaker response, but we can take a few sentences out of it and
Sure.
then focus on, even if we just focused on kind of a formula for what you're interested in about the school, programs, access to certain resources, things like that. Like, let's at least tell them that. And then if you feel like you've told them all of those important things, let's at least make this a summary statement.
Hmm.
You know, in case you missed it above and in any of my other application materials, here's why you want me to be your medical student,
Hmm.
which is easily pre-written. So
Very easily.
those are, I think, the common mistakes I'm seeing right now. All very easily have a remedy. I think the most complex one is making sure you understand what the prompt is actually asking, which I do just think comes with time and experience
Hmm.
or working with GradMissions.
We're working with GradMissions because we are slowly and methodically going through this. The other benefit is that we have been excavating stories with you for a while now. And so we are going to remember things that you don't about your story, or that, you're like, well, I don't really have anything for that. I'm like, well, what about these four things? And you're like, oh my gosh, yes, of course that. Like having someone who's been there with you start to finish, the same people who help you build your personal statement are helping you do the secondaries. The same editors who helped you with the activities and experiences are in there helping you build out your secondaries, and they're going to go back to that well. So definitely you get a lot of hands-on experience and experts on your case when you work with us. If you are not working with us, I think it is so important that you get started, that you are pre-writing these secondaries, and that you see this as pre-interview work, because every single secondary question is asked in some form in the interview. The last thing I want to say about secondaries is there is such a thing as a stale secondary. So a few med schools will tell you explicitly, we want this response within 2 weeks. We want this response within 3 weeks. You responding to those secondaries, not just with a thoughtfully written essay, but also in like a reasonable period of time, is so important. I'm not saying it has to be within like 3 hours. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But 2 weeks is a long time to let a secondary prompt sit in your inbox. And so please be smart. We have a client right now who is getting married. He got married and he knew he was going to be on his honeymoon and then getting back. And so he strategically waited to hit submit on his application until he knew he would be back and be able to respond to secondaries in a timely fashion. Like, you need to be really honest about what your summer looks like and about the ability to return these, because on the school side of things, there is literally a function where I can build a report in AMCAS that shows me as a school who returned their secondaries most timely. And if I'm looking at an application that is this, 10 applications that are the same, someone let their secondary sit for 3 weeks and somebody returned it in 24 hours, which one of those students do I A, think has their life more together, and B, is more likely to come to my school? That to me signals somebody who's more interested at my campus, who I'm not going to have to work really hard. If I admit them, they're going to come. And so you are signaling quietly to a school your level of interest based on how long you let the secondary linger. Now, that doesn't mean you need to like slap something together and just respond. It needs to be done thoughtfully, but you do need to pay attention to those timelines. So many of you high achievers need a deadline, and if a school doesn't give you a deadline, you think it's just murky and out there in the ether. It's not. Like your timeline from autumn is 2 weeks max. I really like 72 hours.
That I actually didn't know that. I did not know that there was a report that you could pull.
Yes.
Oh man, then you have to pre-write people. You have to pre-write. You're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it if you don't pre-write. Please,
That's right.
please.
You're also not going to make it if you write 700 individual secondaries. You're not going to. And so that's the other thing. That's what ends up happening. People who say, like, oh, I can't just write 16 themes. Like, I need to know what each individual prompt is. You know what you're going to end up doing? You're going to end up writing the same 7 stories on repeat and not very well. You're going to try to retrofit things rather than you staying in the driver's seat. These are the stories I'm going to tell. I'm going to look at this question, see which one of these best aligns. I'm going to shape it a little bit and submit it. Then you're in charge. You get to drive. Those people who stay in charge of their story get to have their pick of a med school instead of just taking whatever's offered to them.
Yes, that's such a good point.
Yeah. Parting words to our secondary friends, Logan.
You can do this.
Yeah.
I know last time I think I said Godspeed, and I do still mean that. I do still mean that. But you really can do this. You have an interesting story to share. It's not for lack of material.
Yeah.
It's honestly for lack of time.
Mhm.
And so use as much time as you possibly can to make sure that you extract and tell your story the way that you want to tell it.
That's right. Such a good word. You, at the end of September, waiting on interview invites, are going to be so thankful. That's the time to rest. This is not the time to rest. This is the time to get the job done. There's no crying in a code. Chin up. You've got this. And we'll be here next week.
Bye.
Bye.